Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk about my first labor and delivery with my daughter, as well as my new birth plan for this baby. I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little rough, but I still am sick. So I just want to get through this video as quickly as possible, just to give you my background and my new birth plan. So originally I was due with my daughter on November 21st, 2009, and I didn't end up going into labor at all. So I was induced on the 26th of November, and I was supposed to be induced. They told me to be there around 8 o'clock in the morning, and I got there at that time, but I wasn't actually induced until 12 p.m. So that's a 4-hour gap that I was just basically sitting in the hospital. So I was induced internally, vaginally, and I can't remember what they call that induction, but it was internally. So basically after that, they kept checking me regularly, and I was progressing fairly well, I would say. They eventually broke my water. I can't even remember what time it was, but it was that same day. I stayed in labor until all the way the next day. That night, the contractions were very horrible. I didn't have any medication at this point, and I just remember laying in the bed and grabbing the rails, and my knuckles and fingers went all white because I was grabbing them so hard because I was in so much pain. My mother and Kyle stayed with me that night. Kyle pretty much slept on the floor all night, and my mom was by my bedside the whole time. So the next day, I was still progressing really well, and I ended up asking for the gas. They offered me the gas, and I kept saying to my mom, like, this isn't doing anything, it's not working. So finally, they actually had the nurse come in, and the tank wasn't working, or the gas wasn't working. So they actually got a technician to come in to look at it, and funny thing about it, the nurse actually didn't even turn it on. So I went probably a few hours knowing that it wasn't working, and it just wasn't being given because it wasn't on. So that absolutely did nothing. Even after we figured out that it wasn't turned on, it still didn't do anything for me. So I was roughly 7 centimeters, and the nurse asked me if I would like an epidural because the anesthesiologist was actually leaving. So I said, yes, I want it. I really would have liked to push further, but because they said that the doctor was leaving for that procedure, I didn't want to go without if I couldn't. So I ended up getting the epidural, and I was actually very scared about the epidural. I had heard stories, obviously, they can paralyze you, how big the needle is and such. But by that point, I was so ready to have the epidural. And when I did get it, it was almost a sense of relief when I felt that needle go in my back. There was a lot of pressure in your back. It's definitely a feeling you can't describe to anyone that hasn't been through it. But that pain in your back, it was a sense of relief because I knew the pain from the contractions was soon going to be gone. So because I hadn't slept all night, I rested for 1 to 2 hours, I believe, and then it was pretty much time to push. I pushed for roughly a half an hour, maybe not even 10 times, and Michaela was out. So Michaela was born at 2:58 on November 27th, 2009. She weighed 7 pounds, 14 ounces, and she was 21¼ inches long, and she was just perfect. So the doctor handed her to me, and Kyle cut the cord. They then took her, cleaned her up, did their tests. She got an APGAR scale of 9.5, which my doctor said you actually can't even pay the doctors to give you a 10, which is the highest amount. So if you don't know what an APGAR scale is, it's basically just the baby's reflexes and how they react to things. She did awesome with that. After that, they gave her back to me swaddled, and shortly after, my family was allowed to come in. After that, basically, Michaela was just handed around to each person, and it wasn't till later that evening, that I actually got to breastfeed Michaela. Like, I believe probably a couple hours after. Then we stayed in the hospital for 2 days or 48 hours, and then we were allowed to go home. Michaela did well with everything. Everything went smoothly. I couldn't have asked for a better actual delivery. Obviously, I didn't want to go that long in labor, but you can't do much about it. I don't regret any of the decisions I made with my daughter's birth, but there are some things that I would like to do differently with this birth. So I did draw up a birth plan, and mine, I just went off of a birth plan I found on Pinterest, and I made my own. So just at the top here, I have my name, my date of birth, my due date, and the type of birth planned. So obviously I would like to have a vaginal birth again. And then just here I have a list of important people. So my doctor, Kyle's name, my daughter's name, my mom, my dad, and my brother. And then I just wanted to put a little note, and it says, I would like to try and labor and deliver without an epidural. However, I would like my options told to me on a regular basis in case I decide otherwise. I understand that the request below might change as the process of labor and delivery progress. So I just wanted them to know that obviously nothing can be set in stone and things are going to change along the way, which I'm prepared to deal with. So then I have my birth plan divided into 3 categories, and it's during labor, during delivery, and after delivery. So I'm just going to go through and let you know basically what I hope to happen during my labor and delivery process. So during labor, I would like the following people to be present before and during labor: Kyle, Michaela, my mom, my dad, and my brother. During labor, I would like as few interruptions as possible. Hospital staff limited to my doctor as well as the nurses. I don't really want any students or interns. Last time I didn't have any students or interns. However, I did have during the epidural, I believe, 1 student come in. They asked me if that would be okay, and I did say that was okay. I didn't mind at that point. I was tired, I was sore, and I just said yes, which I don't regret at all because it helped the student learn more about an epidural. During labor, I'd also like to wear my own clothes, my family members or myself to film and take pictures. Obviously, I want to film my labor and delivery for you guys, and to eat and drink as provided by my doctor. So as long as the doctor says it's okay, I would like to drink and eat as much as I can. Obviously, I know in hospitals, they don't allow you to eat so much in case you do have to go for a C-section. They don't want you to have a full stomach. Also during labor, I would like to have the options of standing, lying down, walking around, or relaxing in a bathtub. Last time, the nurses did notify me that I was allowed to go in the jacuzzi tub. However, I had to be able to walk around, and this was before my epidural, and I ended up walking the halls once, and I could barely make it to the end of the hall and back. So I wasn't allowed to go into the jacuzzi tub that night, but after I did have Michaela, I did have the jacuzzi tub. For pain relief during labor, I will consider breathing techniques, distraction, massage, gas, and standard epidural. So like I mentioned before in my note, this time I would prefer to not use an epidural, only because in the future we plan on having 2 more kids, and I would like them to be home water births. So I know I can't have a home birth with an epidural. It just doesn't happen. So I would like to prepare myself in a hospital setting without an epidural to see if I would be able to cope without pain medication delivering a baby. So for this time around, I really want to try not using an epidural or any medication for that matter. So during the delivery, I would like Kyle and my mom to be with me. Last time my mother and Kyle were there present, and I believe that's all you're allowed in my hospital to have with you is 2 people. So as the baby is delivered, I would like to push as directed. So last time I had the epidural and I actually couldn't even feel the contractions coming on. So the nurse actually had to tell me when I was allowed to push because I couldn't feel the moments where I should be pushing. So I want to push as directed, have a full dose of epidural if I'm on the epidural at that point. Kyle or my mom to film and take pictures, to wear my own clothes. I have a gown or dress that I would like to wear. I might modify it to make it more accessible like a hospital gown. I haven't decided yet, but I would like to wear my own clothes and not a hospital gown. Avoid forceps and avoid vacuum usage. And then immediately after delivery, I would like the umbilical cord to be cut only after the placenta stops pulsing, and when it is cut, to be cut by Kyle. The baby to be given directly to me, and this time around I would like to breastfeed as soon as possible because I know the sooner the better. So after the delivery and the placenta is delivered and I'm all stitched up, if I tear, which I did tear last time, I believe I had 1 stitch, I would like my dad, my brother, and Michaela all to come in the room as soon as possible. Also, if Kyle's dad is there, then he will be able to enter the room as well. And then I just put some notes after the delivery. Please don't give my baby formula or a pacifier because I will be breastfeeding. And I would like to feed my baby only breast milk and on demand. So whenever the baby is hungry, I'm going to feed it. It's not going to be on a schedule. Just whenever the baby's hungry, obviously it's going to be fed. And I would like the baby to stay in the room at all times during procedures and medical exams. Then in bold, I just wrote, after the birth, I would like to return home as soon as possible as long as baby and I are healthy. And then I said thank you for your cooperation, because you want to let the nurses know that you're not just trying to boss them around. They are there to do their job, and they know how to do their job. So that's my birth plan for this time around. I do hope it goes all smoothly. For the most part, I don't want to be induced again. Obviously, if I go over, I will be induced. But I'm hoping, because I am carrying so low this time, that I will go into labor by myself and not have to have the induction. So if you have any questions about my birth plan or even my last labor and delivery with my daughter, then leave them in the comments below. I'll be sure to answer them all either in the comments or I'll do a separate video on it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.